All right, we're live. Look at you smiling already. Usually I tell people, pretend like you're having a good time, and then that's when the recording, that's when I'll edit it. Allison Shapira, you get it, man.
This is what I do.
Fabulous. It's so good to be with you. I'm friends with you from afar. We know each other strictly from LinkedIn, and I appreciate you doing this for me today. Uh, I think you really get the speaking business, and I'm doubling down on that bet because you also come from the music business, and I have as well. You got started in opera of all things, yes?
That's right.
Was it? Well, I'm just guessing that it was the first job you had. Usually people don't leave something and go into opera. They usually start their career with opera. Is that true?
I don't know, although there's a great movie about a woman who leaves her investment banking job and becomes an opera singer. So
It
I
sounds
I
like a
know
good
about
story.
it's actually a great, very cute film.
I tell you,
I
it's true in the
Mhm.
music business. You don't leave something else and go into rock and roll.
Hmm. Unless you've already made a lot of money in that something else, because you're not going to make it in rock and roll or in the music
That's right.
business overall.
So what
That's right.
happened with opera? How did that happen?
It was my first career path, my first career goal ever since I was 12 and started taking voice lessons. My first teacher was a classically trained teacher. I love to sing. And she said to me, you're a soprano. She gave me the literature, and that set the course of my musical trajectory was classical music. And I went to a performing arts high school and then college and studied vocal performance and got disillusioned with the field of opera. Turns out, like many careers, it's very political.
Oh, wait a
And
second. You
yeah,
said
go ahead.
that sounded like you joined opera on Thursday and you realized it was political on Friday. What's the time period there?
Well, I joined opera as in I started studying opera when I was 12. And then by the time I got to college, I would say halfway through college, I realized this is not a career where you can work hard, be smart, and get ahead.
It's fair to say almost everybody that goes to college realizes things are political right around that age frame. But you mean political in the opera game that you were promoted if you did certain, not promoted, but what do you call it, advanced,
Advanced.
if you play the game kind of a thing?
I guess what I'm trying to say, and maybe political in some ways, it's very subjective. So my musical development was not happening at the pace at which my teachers wanted it to develop. And so even though I was getting straight A's in music theory, music history, I was taking three foreign languages in one semester.
Ooh,
And so straight A's in all of those areas. Literally one day I was taking modern Greek, Italian, and German
that's a
on
lot
the
of
same
combination.
day. But so I was getting straight A's there, but then my grades in voice kept going down because my voice wasn't developing at the pace that my teachers wanted. It was a very competitive industry.
Yeah.
And my colleagues who had glorious voices but weren't as studious, they were getting ahead. And I thought, this is not a field I want to be in. I want to feel to be in a field where I can work hard and know that I'm creating my own success. And I didn't see that path
Yeah.
in opera. And all the opera singers I talked to, the more advanced professional opera singers, couldn't necessarily support themselves. They were married to someone supporting them. And I'm looking at that and thinking, I don't want that to be my future. I want agency over my own success.
This is so much like the rock music business because the best bands weren't always advancing. It was the bands with the coolest haircuts or the
I
biggest.
mean, there's something to be said for a cool haircut, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Also, good for you for having the clarity that maybe this wasn't for you because some people suffer through it for another 10 or 15 years.
Mm-hmm. I've always been very good at identifying what no is on an academic level, personal level, professional level. I may not know what yes is, but I'm very good at shutting down the no. It might take a little while,
I'm
but I
having
shut that
trouble.
down. Hmm?
Yeah, I always have trouble deciding if a maybe is a yes or a no.
The maybes are very dangerous, and we waste a lot of time on the maybes. I will
Yes,
give
we
you
do.
that. Mhm.
I've always wondered if operatic singers study diction. I know you were learning four languages total, if you count English. Were you learning how, is part of opera learning how to enunciate and articulate? And in the rock business, we don't care so much about how the words come out.
Mhm.
There's a little thing that we do in America. We blur the R's. Care. I don't care. We don't say care when we're singing.
Right. That's right.
Uh, but in opera, was there any bit of articulation?
There was a lot. Let me go back to one element you mentioned. I was studying three languages, speaking of fourth. I was actually studying at least two other languages at home on my own just for fun.
Yeah,
That's
for
what I
kicks
like to do. I
for
open up a
kicks
book.
and
Let's
giggles.
learn the Cyrillic alphabet for fun.
Oh wow.
So diction, yeah,
Cyrillic,
go
for
ahead.
those of you that don't know, Russian.
That's right. The alphabet in which Russian is
Wow.
written. So diction is an important part of opera for a number of reasons, one of which is we're singing in other languages. Other languages have different cadences, different accents, and we don't necessarily speak those languages. Even though we're studying Italian, we're taking Italian for singers, but we're singing in Italian, even if we haven't fully advanced in our study of Italian language. So, one of the most common critiques we would receive is on our diction and our pronunciation of Italian. So, are my dentals too aspirated? As in, do I say t or th? Is it external or internal? Is it an open E, an or a closed E, eh? And are my double consonants, do I pause enough on the double consonant or do I rush through it? So those were very specific instructions that we had, very specific feedback we received, which made me a very precise singer. And actually, when I left opera and then 10 years later picked up a guitar and started singing folk music, I had to unlearn some of that diction
That's
because I'm
excellent.
singing Joan Baez folk songs with my British English diction that I've learned as an opera singer.
Or worse, country music. And they don't care.
Depends on who's asking.
They don't care a whit in country.
So I was almost too perfect in my pronunciation, and that's actually when I started my business teaching public speaking and more broadly communication. This tension between perfection and authenticity is one that I found a lot of leaders face, a lot of speakers face. I faced it because opera is about the perfection of the art form, whereas folk music is about authenticity and emotion. And so public speaking, communication, as you know, is closer to authenticity than perfection. I mean, there are certain things that we want to get right, but our audiences relate more to authenticity than they do to perfection.
100%. I always say the perfect presentation is boring
That's right. That's right.
because
It is. It is
the
because
little
nobody can relate
mistakes.
to it.
My biggest laughs, I think most people's biggest laughs are accidents that we do in front of the room. We mispronounce something or you know, the other day I was walking backwards on a speaking platform and I bumped into the table behind me. The audience fell down like it was, the Marx Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to play over that stuff. A lot of
That's right.
people, they fold their tent and they just shut down because it's embarrassing. But you just got to learn that that's what makes you human in front of
Right.
people.
Right. And they're paying attention to how you handle when things go wrong.
Yeah,
And when people come to me to learn how to build their executive presence, what I tell them is executive presence isn't just in how you show up when you're prepared and you've done your homework and everything goes according to plan. It usually shows itself when things don't go according to plan. Something happens you didn't anticipate. Can you be flexible and adaptive to react to the situation without losing your cool. And that's where your presence is measured.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know so much about this stuff. You're teaching, are you teaching this at Harvard?
Yes, I teach leadership communication at the Harvard Kennedy School.
Is that the name of the class?
The class is called The Arts of Communication.
Okay. And I want to talk more about that as we talk about how language is changing. And I think it's the younger generation that is driving it, but I want to get your opinion on that. But you also know so much about this content that you've written at least two books about it. One is a P book, print book. The other one's an e-book. I don't know if they're different, if it's different content. Speaking with Impact or Speak with Impact, is that correct?
Speak with Impact is my first book, which I published with HarperCollins Leadership, and it is a practical guide to the busy professional moving up in their career who wants to use their voice to make an impact.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a Washington Post bestseller, which I'm very proud of.
Oh, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
The second book, Speak with Impact Virtually, I published during the pandemic to take the learnings from Speak with Impact and apply it in a post-pandemic environment where all of a sudden we were on Zoom much more frequently. We were doing hybrid presentations. So that's the book. The second book is the how to take Speak with Impact into a virtual or hybrid setting.
yeah, good timing. By the way, I think a lot of books were written during COVID.
That would be a very effective use of time.
I know. Were you doing big events at that time?
I was doing big virtual events. I mean, I had a lot of big
Before that, were
in-person
you
events.
probably big events before COVID? And us big event speakers, that's big events were the first thing to go away. I mean, we had to figure out something.
Certainly. I mean,
remember
everything was canceled.
yeah,
I started to have big events, as in it's a virtual presentation
yeah,
to 4,000 people. So that's a big event,
even
but
bigger, maybe.
it's even bigger. It's just me in my home office looking into the camera lens. And then when it's done, I get the applause icons, and then it's time to go do laundry or go do the dishes.
I knew virtual was here to stay when I collected full fee for the first time on Zoom. And I was unsuccessful selling it for about 6 months, and then I figured it out. I'm sure you did too, but that's what convinced me virtual is here forever. I think I'm interested in your take on this, Allison. I think it's harder to present on Zoom than in person. What do you
Oh,
think?
without question. I
Yeah,
mean, in some areas it's harder because you don't get the energy from the audience. I mean, I feed off of the audience's reactions, like your nodding head right there. That gives me energy. And if I'm looking into the camera lens, which is what I need to do for you to think that I'm looking at you,
yeah.
I can't see all that. And then in the pandemic, because everyone was on camera all the time, most people would turn their camera lens off. So that meant I had to manufacture that energy or find it within myself, and then not have the immediate feedback of all the nodding heads or that collective effervescence that you feel in the room. So that was hard. I did get used to having notes readily available when I needed them right in front of my nose. So if I need something because I'm tweaking a line, I can just glance down, versus on stage, introducing new material is a little harder because you don't have your notes as readily available.
I love it. You do know what you're talking about. What's your website? Where can people find you?
AllisonShapira.com. And
Excellent.
that's Allison with two L's and Shapira with an A. So that's my primary site. I also love it when people connect with me on LinkedIn, as you did, because I'm very active on LinkedIn, and they can send me messages and then they find out about new books coming out, such as my new book, AI for the Authentic Leader, and other elements.
Ooh, AI. Let's go back to this younger generation driving
Okay.
change. I think language has always changed. Um, I didn't think I would care so much about it, but here I am watching the language I grew up, learned, mastered, then grew up with, is now changing and shifting.
That's right.
Not only the meaning of words, new words are coming into the English language. We know that's true of Webster publishes 10 new words that were added to the dictionary last year, that kind of a thing. But also the very pronunciation of words. And that one bugs. That one gets inside my head. I know you've got some too, don't you?
I have pet peeves that bother me. My two pet peeves with intonation are uptalk, when our voice goes up at the end of a sentence. And the reason is, in an American English sentence, the voice goes up in the middle of the sentence and then it comes back down at the end. And there's that very natural cadence and rhythm that our ears are used to hearing. And when we make a statement, but our voice goes up at the end of a sentence, then our mind wants resolution. And when there's no resolution, it creates this dissonance inside of us. And I don't want that dissonance. It also sounds like we're questioning ourselves. So if I say, my name is Allison Shapira, it sounds like I'm asking a question instead of saying, my name is Allison Shapira.
This can hurt
And
things like integrity, credibility, believability, first impressions.
it does. It specifically hurts it in an intergenerational context. If you're younger and then you're speaking with uptalk to someone who's of an older generation, because I'll talk about myself as an older generation. I interpret that uptalk as a lack of confidence.
That's right.
Now,
Me too.
among a younger generation, it's just the way we talk. And I'll never forget a younger employee of mine called me out for focusing so much on uptalk. She said, I don't think it's going to really matter soon. And I said, why? And she said, because anyone who cares about it is your age or older. So soon enough, no one will notice.
We're all going to age out. That would have been perfect though if she said, I don't think it will matter soon. And they'll talk that,
That's right. But it made me pause for a minute because it is very much about the perception of intent. And
I think,
communication, yep, is two ways. So how does our audience perceive it? It depends on who the audience is.
yeah, if we're going to help people truly understand this and fix it if they care to, I think it would help to know more about why it's happened and if it's impacting certain people in particular. For instance, with this uptalking, I think women tend to do it more often than men. Yes or no?
No,
Oh, is it equal?
I don't have exact statistics. I can tell you from my own observation and from the research, we notice it more in women.
Oh, that's an interesting distinction.
So there was a fascinating article years ago that about people writing into NPR. Oh, this was vocal fry, which is my other issue, that people would write in to complain about the vocal fry of the women voices, the women journalists, and not the male journalists, even though men do it as well. I find it's less about gender. We may hear it more in women, but in my experience, uptalk tends to happen when we have a perceived lower status than others in the room. And for many women in a mostly male environment, they are going to have lower status because they're a minority in the room. But I find I'll hear uptalk in younger men as much as women in a room with mostly older professionals, and it's perceived status that's making them sound more questioning as opposed to strongly assertive.
Okay. So no statistics, but perhaps it's both if impacting both genders. Let's go back to where it came from. Famous
Mhm.
Seinfeld episode about it years ago. Uh, but Seinfeld didn't invent it. He just observed it. That's Jerry's
Right.
great gift. He observes it and then he makes it funny for us, or he shows us that it's funny. What happened? Did everybody get a memo about this? And then one day we all got up and said we're going to start up talking. Did it come from a certain region of the country? Same question for vocal fry.
With uptalk, I did research on this for my first book,
Okay.
and I found it started in Australia
Oh, wow.
and then made its way to England through a TV show.
Wait a second. Up talk came from down under?
Very
Okay,
clever. I can't believe I
stay
never
with
thought
you.
about that. I love it. I love it.
Feel
Made
free to
its
use
way.
that in your talks.
Right. Well, maybe it went up from Australia to
Oh,
England,
obviously it did. Very good.
but then somehow from England, it now my hands are not geographically accurate right now, but it made its way from England to Southern California, which is why we think about it as a Valley Girl phenomenon, and and then it spread across the country. So who knows why and how these linguistic patterns spread. That's what I found in my research for the first book.
All right. Well, that's the best credible information I've heard about this because everybody else goes, I don't know. I'm at a barbecue and I'll pose the question. Everybody walks away from me. It is not something anybody wants to dive into because they all do it, I assume. Guilty. Pass the cheeseburgers. That's all they have to say.
Mhm.
Same thing for mispronunciation of words. Like one of my big pet peeves is the word button or any word with a T in the middle of it has become a soft D, budden.
But in,
Have
as
you
opposed
noticed?
to but in, like a glottal stop.
Sorry, yeah, maybe you're more accurate about it. How do you describe it?
So I think when I think about a button is a glottal stop. And I learned about that from Arabic because Arabic has as it has an actual indicator in the Arabic language
Yeah.
for that kind of glottal stop. It's when we say actually, the glottal stop is at the beginning of the word actually, which is, fun fact, or not a fact, but an interesting anecdote.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to interrupt a conversation when you say actually, because the glottal stop in the A propels your voice into the conversation.
Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure how many, well, I don't think most people think about this stuff that much, but that's a great instinctive thing. Use that hard attack, as in actually, to get people's attention. But to answer your question from earlier, maybe I'm asking about both button and button, because I've heard both.
I have not heard button with a D.
Are you hearing button?
Button, button, button. I wouldn't say button. So that's a difference now between opera and folk. So if I were singing button, I would have to put the T in there. I couldn't go button. That wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But if I were singing it in a folk song, I might still have to aspirate it. But in casual conversation, even a speech, if you want to make the speech more conversational, I probably would use the glottal stop instead. This is getting very deep into the weeds of diction and pronunciation,
Well, think of it as content for your next book.
which if people don't want to talk about at a barbecue, it might not be the best focus for a book.
I don't think, I find it harder to get people to talk about books anytime, actually. I posted on Facebook the other day, I said, I'm reading such and such. And then I asked, what are you reading? Crickets, nothing. And I have a fervent following. People like me normally. That
Interesting.
question was a brain stumper, I guess.
Right. Well, can I talk about my latest book then while we're talking
I'd
about
love
what
you
to
to,
read?
please.
For the past, I would say over 5 years, it could be as much as 8, people have come to me to test public speaking apps that they're using to help with people improve their speaking skills. And more, they started to incorporate AI into the tools that they were using. And that's how AI first got onto my radar as a tool to help people with their communication skills. Then, when generative AI became available, I realized how powerful it is across all functionalities. But one area people weren't looking at was, could you use AI to be more authentic? So, could you use artificial intelligence to be more authentic? And that was an area nobody was talking about. And I realized was an opportunity for me to guide my clients because many of them are proud of being authentic leaders, authentic speakers. We've worked very hard to release their authenticity in their professional communication. Now, one of them said to me the other day, Allison, you know me, I'm all about authenticity. I don't even want to download AI onto my computer because I'm afraid of losing my authentic voice. And that's where I realized I wanted to write a book to guide my clients and other leaders who are proud of their authenticity and afraid to use this tool, so that they understood how can you communicate more effectively because of AI, but also more authentically.
I'm assuming, since you found enough content for a book about this, that you can use artificial intelligence to be more real as a communicator.
Yes, yes, you can. Now, there's not a lot of research on this yet because it's too soon. I mean, every week, the technology is changing. So, what we have are a number of use cases from how people are using it and theoretical reflections on the future, as in, what does this mean for the future of authenticity? We already have significant pushback now when you get a cover letter that's written by AI, or when you see social media that's all generated by AI. And right now, you can tell it makes the person using it look inauthentic.
Yeah.
But how do we use it in a way that unlocks our authenticity, because it can prompt us to bring out our humanity?
Hmm. I can tell, now that you mention it, I was going to say I can tell, but a lot of people can't seem to tell. Now that you mention it, I'm seeing most AI applications coming at me, say on Facebook, from groups, which may be bots themselves, these groups, or pages that pair. I saw the other day, Dick Van Dyke was bed in his bed because he's 99 or 100, and he was with a celebrity, and they were both smiling, big happy smiles. Clearly, an AI rendition of an image, or not even of an image. It's just an AI creation, and it had so many comments, many of which were supportive of Dick Van Dyke and the other person. But no, but my point is, a real person didn't own that post, but it did seem to me a lot of people bought into it.
There's a very real danger with AI generated images and videos. And I believe at this point and going forward, we can no longer believe anything that we see on video or hear over a phone call unless we experience it in person, live, from the actual person speaking.
All right, so that's a can of worms I hadn't planned to talk about today.
Maybe the next
Another two
podcast.
minutes for this one. If we can't believe anything that we see in video or hear in audio, where, but we can't we can't watch the president address us in person. We have to accept what we're seeing through the media channels.
We will default to trusting the news media sources we've always trusted and distrusting the ones we don't, or mistrusting the ones we don't. However, it is so easy to create a video clip of any president, past or present,
Or
saying
dead.
something that they didn't say. It happens on both sides of the aisle.
Of course.
And so, what does it mean? It means in-person events will be more important than ever, which for those who love speaking
All
or
the
who love to help
yeah.
others speak means our work is going to be more important than ever, because it will be distinctive and it will be a significant driver of human connection.
That's the best news I've heard in a long time. We invoked an important name I have to ask you about. I don't want to get political. I'm not interested in politics on my podcast. Everybody knows that. One of the people in the United States that talks to us the most is a very unusual speaker. I'm talking about the current president of the United States. It's true, whoever is the president. He has a very unusual speaking style. How would you describe it?
I would describe it as a casual
Mhm.
and simple speaking style.
Yes?
And I believe the president's speaking style demonstrates the power of simplicity when communicating a message.
Yeah, somebody told me that President Trump tends to speak in pictures, and pictures, people like pictures because they're easy to understand. Even if the pictures never materialize, build a wall. Everybody understands what building a wall is, even if the concept's fuzzy of how to do it, who's going to pay for it, all the problems that came up. But I agree with you. It's a very simple approach. Do you think his humor works? Humor can be an important part of a presentation. He uses humor a lot.
It's hard for me to evaluate his humor. I think what I focus on the most is clarity and the, I would say not clarity, simplicity. And what I believe the challenge is for any president is to be able to merge simplicity with accuracy. That's where all of us are challenged, because it's very easy to cut out, well, it's not easy. It's helpful to cut out the excess that's creating complexity, but the challenge is keeping accuracy and nuance in that simplicity. And that is something I think all of us need to work on.
Yeah, thank you. We referenced earlier that words were being added to the English language. I think words are being subtracted as well. I think an entire generation of people has stopped using the phrase, "you're welcome."
Really?
Yeah, I hardly ever hear it anymore. I've tested this with other people. Think about what we get instead. No problem. Okay. The ever popular, yeah. Now you won't be able to stop thinking about this, which is exactly my plan. I think it's one of those, because I have a theory that every generation becomes less formal. Every generation wears less clothes. Every generation becomes more relaxed in terms of etiquette and protocol. Every generation takes a more casual approach to language, is my theory. Again, we have very little research on this.
There's actually a lot of research on changing communication styles from one generation to the next. I hadn't noticed the lack of "you're welcome," and I'm going to pay attention to that. As you noted, I will, to see if I hear it as well. What is "you're welcome"? "You're welcome," there's a call and response. Thank you, you're welcome. So if there's an alternative, "no problem," I use "no problem" quite a bit.
Yeah.
So as long as there is an acknowledgement, there's still that call and response. The question is it to your satisfaction?
Yeah, I read an article about Ritz-Carlton back in the day, which was like the standard of hospitality and protocol, even
That's
language,
right.
because they were big on good morning instead of hello,
Mm-hmm.
good afternoon if it was afternoon, not hi.
That's
Uh,
right. And what do they say instead of "you're welcome"?
oh, they said you're welcome.
Their phrase is "my pleasure."
Oh, thank you. You're absolutely right. The reason I was going down that path just now is the person that wrote the article said no problem. Translated was, because you say, well, thank you very much. And the other person says, no problem. Translated, you are not a problem. And they didn't like that at all.
I
But
interpret it as "it's not a problem," but I also read an
not a
article,
bother, as they say in Britain, not a
right?
bother.
I
Not
did
to
read an
worry.
article at one point about why you shouldn't say "no problem." I found it a persuasive article, but then I forgot the argument and I've gone back to saying "no problem" or "my pleasure," which is a lovely, very, very gracious phrase that I know they use at the Ritz-Carlton and other luxury hotels.
Yeah. Let's close with something we haven't talked about yet. And you reminded me of it just now, which is sometimes it's not what we say. We worry too much about being precise in our word choice and our word combinations and our phrasing. But we forget it's how you say it that's even more important. Because to say no problem with a neutral face, a neutral expression, is deadly. But to say no problem, when your face says anytime, come back again, and you're welcome all at the same time, you can say almost anything you want. Do you talk
We,
about that when you deal with your executive coaching clients
I do
or
quite a
executives?
bit.
Sometimes my experience is, sorry to interrupt,
Please.
they sometimes take themselves too seriously. They visit the stage after this big long invitation with gravitas, and then they feel like they need to honor the legend that they've just become. And then there's like either very rough attempts at humor or no humor at all in their speech. They're very, it's like this. What do you think? What is your experience?
I work with a lot of new senior leaders. So they've already had a leadership role. Now they're at the senior level, and I work with them on their communication and their confidence to step into that role. And I find they often have this assumption in their minds that they shouldn't be authentic, that they have to act a certain way because now they're the senior leader and here's how the senior leader acts. So they have these self-imposed restrictions on their movement, and they're working so hard to try to play that role that it reduces their authenticity. And what I work with them on is giving them the confidence to just be themselves, because that's going to be more effective as a communicator and as a leader. That's what's going to help them build trust. So they do it. You have that formality, but they don't, in my experience, the ones I work with don't like that formality, but they think that's what they have to do.
Yes.
So we work to change that mindset and then give them the skills to simply to take off all the corporate layers they've accumulated over the course of 25, 30 years and simply be themselves at their best.
Well done. I think you've articulated these issues better than almost anybody I've ever talked to, and I really appreciate the time today. It's Allison Shapira, everybody, AllisonShapira.com. Her most recent book is Speak with Impact. And what's the title of the new one with the AI application?
The new book is AI for the Authentic Leader: How to Communicate More Effectively Without Losing Your Humanity.
Yeah. And if you're an executive of any kind, you should look into her for some executive coaching. I imagine you get a lot of referrals from people who work for executives. You should talk to that guy.
Yes. Well, it's a lot of times it's the senior most leader who says, I've just elevated these top performers on my team. They have the subject matter expertise. I want to give them the confidence to step into this role. So it's their boss, the big boss, who wants to ensure that these leaders know how to get to the point. They know how to lead with bottom line up front. They don't fall apart under tough questions, and they know how to choose the right message for the right audience.
Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you're thinking, yeah, the big boss could use this too?
I often work with the big boss as well. That's how they know about me.
Good for you. Good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Allison Shapira, it's a pleasure. Thanks for being with me today.
Such a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for the time.